What if the parts of your life you felt the most ashamed of became the very things that set you free? Today's guest, Shauna Brittenham Reiter, is living proof that healing is messy, nonlinear, and transformative. From battling chronic illness and anxiety in her teens to building a multi-million-dollar wellness company, Shauna shares how slowing down, setting boundaries, and embracing her full, imperfect self led to radical inner freedom. We talk about control, surrender, authenticity, and what it truly means to be the boss of you. This episode is real and deeply human, and it just might change the way you see possibilities for your own story. Welcome to Make It a Great One with Dr. Dan. I'm Dan Peters, psychologist and executive coach. This show is all about bringing hope, connection, awareness, and wisdom through meaningful conversations that inspire us to be better versions of ourselves and make a positive impact on humanity. This is your space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with who you are, what you care about, and who you want to be. We have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one. Today's show is You Are the Boss of You with Shauna Brittenham Reiter. Shauna is an entrepreneur and author dedicated to the empowerment and healing of herself and others. In 2018, she founded the multimillion-dollar wellness company, Alaya Naturals, based on the principles of holistic health that freed her from the shackles of anxiety and people-pleasing to live a life full of creativity, joy, and ease. Shauna is a living testimony to what is possible when you confront your trauma, nurture the world within, and grab hold of your wildest dreams. And she provides a roadmap on how to achieve this in her new book, You Are the Boss of You, Cultivate the Mindset and Practices to Live Life on Your Terms. Shauna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I feel healed just by looking at what's in your office. Whatever's going on
Oh,
behind you on those shelves, it's very therapeutic over there, Dr. Dan.
thank
I
you
gotta
for
change
that.
my setup
Yeah.
here.
Thank you. That is what is aspired. That is what we are aspiring for. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that it is having that effect. It has that effect on me in this room, and I'm glad it's having that on you. You're crushing it. I just want to start with this. Like
Oh my gosh.
you're crushing it, and I'm so excited. I read your book. Of course, I did my background on you and your company, and I just want to say congratulations to the journey and what your healing has ended up producing, not only for you, but what you are putting out in the world for others.
I so appreciate you saying that, Dr. Dan. It's like you hope that everything you've been through has an impact and that there's a place for every part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that at the end of the day, it's sometimes that the parts of our lives that are the most confusing or the most shameful or the most disorienting end up being the greatest gift in the long run and the thing that you ultimately have to offer others.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a tumultuous, beautiful, messy human ride. And I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you saying that. Those words mean a lot to me.
The first thing I was curious about is, I mean, you touched on this at the beginning of your book, not in the specifics of when exactly your healing
Hmm.
started. You know,
Oh,
as
yes.
you look
Yes.
back, there was so much that you were dealing with, from mental health to trauma
Hmm.
to autoimmune issues.
Hmm.
When did it transition to healing, or as you look back, is it that view changes of when the healing actually started for you?
I think that healing is incremental, it's cumulative, it's nonlinear, and it happens in so many stages over the course of our lives. And there are different textures and layers to it, and some can be defined and categorized, and others can't. You know, on
Mm-hmm.
some level, every moment we're healing, right? Like if we're moving forward with intention and integrity, whether or not it looks like we're further along in our lives, like all moments are created equal in a
Mm,
sense, as far as
mm-hmm.
I'm concerned. And so, I don't necessarily want to judge any part of my life as more meaningful or significant in terms of my healing journey, but I'll say it began around 14. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. I had Sorry, I was about to sneeze and was trying to suppress it. This is everything. Do not suppress anything. It backfires. Just let it out,
Let
guys.
it go. Let
Let
it
out your
go.
emotions. Let
Yeah.
out your sneezes. It's much more efficient that way. Yeah. So I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And really, that whole breakdown was so interesting because what got unpacked as a consequence of that diagnosis was all of the underlying reasons for the autoimmune condition. So I think there's more awareness around this now, but at the time, no one was really talking about how underlying stress and repressed trauma can lead to these aggravations of the body,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the mind and the unprocessed emotional body
Mm-hmm.
has these really significant effects on how we present in the world physically and the experience of ourselves psychologically, emotionally, tangibly. And so my body really just kind of broke down when I was 14, and I had to slow down and cultivate a level of awareness that I never had before. And I think we would now call that mindfulness. At the
Right.
time, I didn't have language for it, but
Mm-hmm.
I knew what it meant was not mowing over my pain and discomfort. So I had like a lot of real physical pain, tenseness in my shoulders, chronic back pain. I had ulcers in both of my intestines and stomach. So at 14, it was kind of like a large load to bear. I was also very sort of quiet and secretive about my discomfort because I didn't want to be a burden to anybody. And quite frankly, I was sort of embarrassed by it. Like
Mm-hmm.
as a teenage girl, you don't want to lead with what, in my mind, I was categorizing as weakness. There
Mm-hmm.
was a sort of shame and embarrassment around that. I wanted to be sort of powerful and brave and enlightened and alive and activated and all the things that we, associate with teenage, young, vibrant girls. And I felt very impaired
Mm-hmm.
and vulnerable in a lot of ways that were sort of difficult to share, even with my own family members. So the slowing down process, I would say, was the first step of healing, which basically meant just letting myself feel physical pain. And not sort of ignoring it, overriding it, or prioritizing achievement. Like at the time, I was at a very competitive Ivy League prep high school. Didn't have a lot of time to myself. I was playing soccer and singing and working really hard to make Dean's List and all the things. And it just wasn't working for my body. So I needed to actually I tried sort of, transferring to a school that was less aggressive
Mm-hmm.
academically,
Mm-hmm.
and realized like I was too deep down the rabbit hole of the autoimmune stuff for that to be a viable option. I needed to be removed entirely from the situation. So I began homeschooling when I
Yeah.
was, I think, like halfway through my 14th year of life. And what was really interesting about that was that it was this sort of archaic throwback, almost
Mm-hmm.
like world that I created with my family, where, my dad was teaching me history. I mean, he has a full-time job, but he was teaching me history in the backyard, and my stepdad was teaching me math. My mom was teaching me French, and we just kind of pulled together this curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And then I secretly, got my GED without telling my dad, and then graduated from high school later on that year. But that's a whole different
That's
story.
a
I
whole
did
different
write a
story.
memoir. We haven't
Right.
published
Right.
that book. Yeah, that's
Right.
a much more interesting story. But all in all, what that time was about for me, that whole year was about slowing things down and trying to remove some of the judgment and shame around being quote unquote unwell
Mm-hmm.
so that I could heal holistically. And I was told by doctors that this is something that I would struggle with for the rest of my life. I have never once had a flare up. Not since I was 15. I'm 43 years old today, so I
Wow.
have had other
Wow.
issues for
Yeah.
sure. I've had other autoimmune because pain travels. So if there's
Right.
anything unresolved, it will find another place in your body to land. So again, layers of healing stages that have unraveled over time. But I've never struggled with digestion issues or anything related to that system of my body
Hmm.
ever again.
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting to sort of note that there are a lot of conditions with underlying emotional issues that are so heavily
Yes.
embedded, right, in the tapestry of
Yes.
a diagnosis that
Right.
it's important to question what's permanent and what's not, and what's environmental and what's psychological and emotional, and sort of how all of those threads interface and intertwine.
And we seem to be moving in many parts of our world are moving towards a holistic way of looking at health. um, i think of I think of the ACE studies, which was probably after were on your healing journey, which is that adverse childhood experiences study, which showed that you know children who had individuals that had environmental stress, emotional stress, psychological stress, it equated to later on physical illness. And in our medical
Right.
world, we're often just looking at the physical illness, then looking for symptoms, and then trying to alleviate those symptoms. Where, as you point out, if we look at the whole mind body continuum, there are different windows to look in. And we really
Mm-hmm.
need to be looking at what are causes and trying to get to causes as opposed to just treating symptoms, which are also important. But we know when we treat symptoms, we're not, it's like a band-aid approach as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
holistic healing, which you achieved by slowing down. And also, as you write about, many of the different therapies that you have, from
Oh
mind,
yeah.
mental, body,
I'm a
somatic.
therapy junkie.
Yeah, you've done it. You've done. Everyone, we'll get to the book, and you
Yeah.
have to read about it. But Shauna really has. Um, you have done so many internal family systems, like neuro linguistic programming. Um, so many of the really state of the art therapies, which also show us there are so many ways to heal. There's not one door to healing. There's so many ways to
Mm-mm.
healing, and it is a continuous process because, as you note in your own life, once you sort of heal one thing, it's like whack-a-mole. Then, oh, that just
Yeah,
that just gives
exactly.
room for this other thing that's in there to come
Right.
for us to deal
Yeah,
with. Yeah.
totally. Or you get to the next level
The
of
next,
that same
yeah,
issue that you're ready, if other variables are ready to surface. But it's
yeah.
so true. It's like, so now I'm, all of these sort of underlying issues, that the things that subconsciously I've been wrestling with for so long have somewhat resolved. And I've written a book and I've got this thriving business and family. And now it's like the question for me is, why do I still have trouble being fully seen? Like,
Mm,
what is the part of me that holds back always when I'm on the precipice of the next sort of level of my life? And so we can get as esoteric as we want
hmm.
to with this journey, right? But there's always room for growth, regardless of where you are
Mm,
in your evolution, whether you're just trying to make it through a day without
hmm.
anxiety pummeling you every
Hmm.
moment, which was my reality for a very significant portion of my life, frankly,
Mm,
to where I am now, which is sort of asking this deeper and bigger question of like, what do I actually want my life to look like? How big do I want it to be? And, if I'm going to make myself small again in some capacity, is that by choice?
mm.
Or is it this sort of programming that's shutting me down and limiting my stage, my audience? So
I'm gonna guess it's B rather than A, but I want to ask you what do you think holds you back from being, I would say, bigger, because you've definitely stepped into your power with your
yeah, I think it's
company, your
probably
book. Yeah.
maybe a fear of letting go of control. I mean, I'm actually literally, I've been in the throes of asking myself this question all day, mostly because I'm looking into social media and sort of how I want it to play a role in my life. I just got on Instagram this past, like late fall, so this past October. So I'm a late bloomer in terms of social media. I haven't done any other form of social media, nor was I on social media in the past in any real capacity. Um, and so it just sort of widens the lenses of what's going on in the world in ways that once you're not, before you're a
Mm-hmm.
part of a community like that, you're a little bit more narrow in focus. And the question of like how much am I willing to let go of controlling people's perception of me? What am I
Mm-hmm.
willing to expose? What aspects of myself am I willing to expose, regardless of what people think? How much of my day do I want to be sort of publicly known and metabolized by the outside world?
Yeah.
What is keeping me present and in the moment, and what's taking me out of my ability to sort of be where I am? Because presence is very important to me. So I'm not a person who takes pictures usually. Social media never appealed to me because, like, well, I'm kind of just busy doing my life, doing my day. Um, I didn't really want to stop and log on. So this issue of presence, is a factor. But in terms of like the being seen component, and sort of stepping onto a larger stage, I think we all have this underlying fear of sort of being unacceptable in some way,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
rejected, whatever version of that
Mm-hmm.
we concoct in our minds. But the fantasy being sort of that we're safe and protected if we're in a cocoon, if we're in our jammies. I don't mean literally. I mean, for me, I do mean literally, because I
Mm-hmm.
love being in my jammies as often as possible. But like in our comfort zone, behind the scenes, or doing things quietly in a way that aren't subject to scrutiny, um, or external, eyes. So it's a real balancing act for me. But
Mm-hmm.
I do think that I have to sort of understand, and we all have to understand that whatever situation we're in, if it's uncomfortable, we can change it. And if we know how to create boundaries, I think it's a lot easier to step into the unknown and
Mm-hmm.
take risks, right? So there was a point in my life where I was really uncomfortable setting boundaries. It was not a fluid process for me. So I held myself back from situations where I knew that I wouldn't be able to say no, or I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be able to cut a conversation off, or walk away from the event, or even create a boundary internally in terms of caring what other people thought about me, right?
Right.
So if you trust that you can create boundaries, I think the willingness to take risks increases
Yeah.
exponentially,
Yeah.
right? And then on top of that, trusting your inner resilience and cultivating this sort of soothing self dialogue, where if I step into a situation where I'm uncomfortable or I'm outside of my comfort zone, I can walk myself through that with grace and parent myself,
Yeah.
through like this big scary
Man, you're
world
hitting
in a
you're
sense.
like you're hitting all of the wisdom in your book right now. Like succinctly in describing this, where I relate. We are both recovering perfectionists and recovering people pleasers, and I too. It's just funny as I still do this a little bit, but as I look back over the years and how I would be upset with people asking me to do things like professionally, would you be willing to do this? Would you be willing to do this? And I cannot believe they're asking me this. And what I had to realize
Yeah.
was this was all my own stuff about not wanting to disappoint, not wanting to say no. So I'd get
Right.
upset with someone asking me to do something, which was a reasonable ask. And it was just
Right.
triggering me because it was triggering me to have to say, what do I really want to do? Should I listen to myself or should I do what they want me to
Yeah.
do? Um, and so I think, and as you're talking about social media and getting bigger, there's this surrendering. It's this decision, right? If one decides, it's a surrendering to, if I step into something authentically and I am thoughtful, which clearly just by the questions that you've listed for yourself that you've been thinking about, you are very mindful and very thoughtful. You go over this, you really ask yourself the hard questions. And then can we take a risk to put ourselves out there in an intentional way because we want to help, we want to serve, as opposed to just get likes and some of those things which don't seem to be as sustainable. And then
Mhm.
knowing it's going to be what it's going to be because people are people, and we've got all kinds of responses to putting ourselves out there. And can we get over the
Hmm.
fear and take that risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens almost every day of our lives, like walking down the street. You know, you may choose to say hello to a stranger and they may or may not wave back, right? And it's like that could be like a little bit of an awkward or embarrassing moment. But I feel like the more we get comfortable sort of being outside of our comfort zone and understanding, you use the word surrender, which I think it really struck me, Dr. Dan. And the reason why is because I used to have a really negative association with that word.
Hmm.
And I think because my relationship with control has been so tenuous. For me, surrendering meant like lay down, like give up all your rights, and be at peace with whatever happens, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I do understand there's some sort of truth to that, being at peace with reality. But I think now my concept of surrender is really different. And what surrender means to me is not attaching judgment, control, and fear to everything we do, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
you can still be vivacious and energized in a state of surrender. You can still be an active body. You can still be a transmitter of light. You can still be a messenger. You can still be so activated and be surrendered at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the peace comes in knowing that you're okay letting go,
Right.
letting go of the need to control everything. Right?
Right.
I think that's clearly the Sesame Street word of today.
Yes. Yes. And
is
it's
control.
right. Right. And letting go. Well, a couple things. The thing that came to me just now with what you said is thinking of being okay, and thinking of one of the many Dalai Lama's wisdoms is that we can be okay even if our life situation is not okay. Right. The
Yeah.
idea that we, like, you are the boss of you, right? Like, we can be the boss of ourselves. We can talk to ourselves. We can, as you write about, reparent ourselves. We can be our own parent. we
Yeah.
we can be resilient in situations that are not okay. And there's a lot of life that ends up not okay. You
I
can't
mean,
get
I think
you can't get out of it.
2025 has been a doozy for many
We're
of
off
us
we're
so
off to we're off
far.
to we're off to a good start with that. and,
We're
and
off to a
yeah,
rocky
yeah.
start here,
But
Dr.
it's a
Dan.
perfect example. It's actually a great example of how can we be okay in the chaos while still caring, right? While still caring, while still wanting to make an impact, and not get carried by it. Because,
Yeah.
and as someone who is a highly sensitive feeler, I know firsthand, day in and day out, it's a challenge for me to decide how much news am I going to watch or not watch? Am I going to check
Mm.
in with this or not check in? Am I going to choose to focus on my presence with my team and my clients and my family as a way of adding to, like, the positive intention and vibration?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I do think it is really hard for many right now to do this.
It is. I mean, it's so hard. And I think that as we discussed in regard to healing, how when you heal, one area of your life or part of your body or your mind, it's like whack-a-mole. I loved that. That's such a great analogy and so accurate. And I think the same is true with stress and triggers and sort of external events and pressures and just the many ways in which life can inundate us. Um, in ways that either we can feel really overwhelmed by or we can sort of breathe through and accept, and probably both within the same moment. Like
Hmm.
many moments of my life as a working mother of two involves me going, I am so overwhelmed. Okay, I'm going to breathe right now and I'm going to decide what's going to make me feel better in this moment and the next and the next and the next. And maybe it's a glass of water and maybe it's a reframe. Like today I was thinking like, whatever I'm dealing with physically, whatever, it's not X, Y, or Z. That would be so much worse. And I just chose to and I don't believe in relativizing trauma at all, but like I
Mm-hmm.
injured myself today and it was one of those things where I was like, oh, that was so ridiculous. But you know what? People walk around with chronic pain all the time. That's so much worse than this. Like, I'm really lucky that this is the level of injury it is, and I can throw an ice pack on it and sort of
Mm-hmm.
move on with my day with relative ease. And so that kind of perspective and reframe, I think, is important. Calling a friend, like there are so many ways, like very small, minute things that may not seem profound or monumental, but that create change just because we're giving ourselves the message that we care about ourselves and that we don't just note the problem or note the area of resistance or strain or stress. We're actually responding to it. And I think that's ultimately how you cultivate self-trust and resilience, is that you become aware of what's going on, but then you respond to your needs in real time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. And responding to like your needs, because um, many people are taught that their needs come last, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of programming around your needs coming last, and if they need to come first, right? To be healthy and to be in a healthy relationship and um, to stay as healthy as long as possible, again, because life happens, is knowing that prioritizing, first of all, as you write about, that you matter, and
Mm-hmm.
that it's essential to focus on your own growth. And as you write a lot about your
Mm-hmm.
identity, who you are, your relationship with yourself, and how you define who you are, not allowing others to define you.
Yeah. And I think interestingly, when we are authentic, everyone around us is inspired to be authentic as well. And like, what greater offering can you give to the people in your life than giving them a hall pass to be themselves and to pursue what they love? Like, in many ways, I pushed aside the arts after I had kids. I was a singer and songwriter before I had my son. I was singing through my pregnancy. And then because I have this all or nothing perfectionistic mentality, it was like, well, I cannot perform now because I have to be at home with a baby 24/7. I can't miss a nap and blah, blah, blah. I put all these, restraints on myself and my life. And today, of all days, my son has been asking me, can I give my teachers a copy of your book? And I've just, I've been sort of embarrassed about, like, I don't want to sort of like march into school holding my book. So I've kind of just brushed off the question. And today he actually just grabbed a book from the bookshelf and put it in his backpack. And he said, I'm giving my teachers your book.
He's
And what
proud
I
of you.
realized, yes, he's proud of me. And then he went on to say, I think I'm going to do some writing after school. I think I can be an author. And the same is true with singing. It's like if my daughter hears a song on Pandora, it's like she can't stop talking about it with her friends at school, and like, yeah, she wants to be a singer. It's like, so when we do us in a way that makes us feel alive, the
Hmm.
people around us want to pursue their passions. I mean, my kids will figure out in time what they love, what they truly and authentically love. Right now, it seems like they're sort of piggybacking, off of some of my dreams and talents, but like they've got a whole host of incredible, juicy, delicious offerings. And now that they're seeing me pursue mine and they're really
Hmm.
old enough to be cognizant of that, I feel like I'm setting them on fire, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
so it's really exciting in a way to prioritize yourself,
Hmm.
because what you're saying to others isn't, I don't care about you or your needs or you're not important or you're not a priority. It's, you're so much of a priority that I'm going to bring my best self to the table when I'm
Hmm.
with you. I was
Yes.
really crushed when I was singing when my kid was little and I stopped myself from singing. Like, it really devastated some part of me. Like, it
Hmm.
made me feel down in a very big way. I actually
Hmm.
started writing because of that. I
Yeah.
was like, what can
Well,
I do quietly at home?
and there's two parts to this. One is you have just expressed about um, prioritizing ourself and it freeing up others to do the same. The other part of that, though, is I think this question of perfectionism versus authenticity in terms of what we show the world. I mean, of course, perfectionism is really tough being that person, but I'm going to prioritize myself and I'm going to show the world that I've got my shit together and I do everything impeccably, right? That is different than I'm going to prioritize myself and I'm going to show up as much as I can with who I am, what I care about, and back to this thing, surrender to whatever the outcomes are, whatever the responses are, because I'm
Mhm.
going to be myself. And that's what your kids are responding to is when you are using your voice, whether it's a written voice or a singing voice. You know, kids are bright, man. They like, so they're
They
seeing
are, yeah.
they're seeing you show up with your authenticity, and then it puts you in the situation of, okay, yes, should I just step out and own this? Should I own this? Like, your company, which I want to talk about, has been very successful. This book is going to be, it's new, it's going to be very
Mhm.
successful. And how can you own it, not from a place of perfection, but a place of, this is me. This is
Yeah.
who I am.
Well, I think perfection is so unrelatable and so boring. And I'm so bored by people who present perfectly. So it's an interesting double standard for people like you and I, because I'm sure that the people you're most attracted to, Dr. Dan, are not perfect individuals, right? Like they've got quirks and they've got features that are sort of unreliable and unpredictable and they're hairy. Their lives are, maybe scattered or they're disorienting as, personalities, whatever. My favorite people on planet Earth are so complicated. They are so raw. They are such bundles of contradictions. I think this is another thing that actually has scared me and kept me from moving forward in terms of like being in a bigger light is I am the most I would say, contradictory person one might ever encounter in the sense that I'm full of just countless paradoxes. And a mom friend, a newer mom friend, I mean, someone I've known for maybe 3 years now, said to me when she first met me, our kids were in a pod together during COVID, and she said, my husband and I just keep trying to figure you out. And as soon as we feel like we've got you figured out, you like throw a curveball at us, and then we have to rethink the whole paradigm. And I just looked at her and I smiled and I said, yeah, like no one can really put me in a box and no one can really put anyone, or should we even try to put anyone else in a box? I think social media can be a little bit confusing. Branding can be confusing because the whole idea is to centralize your message to this core theme
Mm-hmm.
that people associate with you. They connect and identify you with a certain color scheme, literally and figuratively. But for me, it's like I'm beige, I'm hot pink, I'm brown, I'm yellow. It's like I'm all of that. And so I don't want to ever be put in a category,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't ever want to be shamed for contradicting myself because I am full of contradictions. I
Yeah,
might say one thing in one moment and then change my mind
that's
or
wonderful.
present
That's
a different side of myself.
right.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's reality.
No one puts baby in the corner. You are not
I
going to be,
have that pillow.
do
Actually, I
you?
have that. I do. I
That's
have
great.
that quote. It was
Yeah.
given to me as a gift by someone who knows me very well, and it's on my
Yeah.
couch. No one puts baby in a corner. But I
No.
feel like that's true of all of us. I think at the end of the day, we all want to feel safe exposing all parts of ourselves, but we feel like a certain percentage of us is
Mm-hmm.
unfit for public consumption. Like, if only this person at my work or in my family or this friend or new person I'm dating or whatever. If only the people looking at my social media profile knew this thing about me, it would be over. They would judge me. They wouldn't trust me, or they wouldn't think of me in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of haunting how so many of us hold back even a little tiny percentage of ourselves,
Totally.
because it's like that's the
Yeah.
linchpin for people thinking we have it
Right.
all together. What's so interesting about
Yeah.
having it all together? I just want to feel free. I want to feel emotionally
That's
free.
it.
I
That's
don't
it.
want to be plagued by anxiety. I don't want
Right.
to be so depressed about my life that I don't feel excited about waking up in the morning. If I
Right.
can strip away those things, the rest of it's going to be pretty textured. That's
Hmm.
the human experience.
Freedom. That's it. Like internal freedom and freedom from ourselves. That's it. Like, not to go on this, but our own ego, our own identity, and how that imprisons us, even though we need that, as opposed to,
The word ego,
yeah,
yes.
right. The whole word ego, just like this thing that represents who we are and how we're supposed to be. And as opposed to, also in your book, is talking about, like, who are you? Like, where's your passion? Like, what is in there? And us actually listening to you, as you talk about our inner guide, our inner wisdom of of what are the messages that you are getting. And those messages can seem like they come from outside you, there can be within you. People get messages in different ways, their thoughts. Listen to them, like, listen to
Hmm.
them. And it's really hard to turn up the volume on our inner wisdom and turn down the
Hmm.
volume on the societal programming that we are bombarded with.
Yeah, I mean, and I think desire is such a simple, straightforward guide. It's like, what do you want? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? It's like we know, often we know. It's not that we don't know, it's that we are afraid of the consequences of acting on that knowing. I have so many friends who are like, I just don't know what I want to do, or I don't know about this person I'm dating. And I'm like, do you really not know? Or are
Hmm.
you scared that you won't be able to do the thing, or that you
Right.
will do the thing and there will be
Hmm.
certain consequences that,
Right.
what are you afraid of gaining? What are you afraid of losing? What feedback do you fear? Right. But the word ego is so interesting to me because I think that it has so much to do with insecurity. Like, have you noticed? I mean, you have a lot more exposure to this than I do in your practice, and I'd love to hear more about your experiences. But do you notice that the people with the largest egos are the most insecure? Because I feel like at the times in my life where my ego has been the most fragile, I'm just not connecting with my self worth.
Hmm.
I'm feeling so vulnerable and so afraid that I might lose love and validation that my ego has become sort of explosive. Like, I have to care so much because I don't really feel like I'm valuable enough inherently or worthy enough of love innately to warrant just being cool with myself in the world, right? So I have to like
Absolutely.
fabricate all of these,
Yeah.
expectations and standards to sort of justify my existence and make being here sort of worthy of that love and attention and security that I'm seeking.
Absolutely. I mean, there seems to be a very strong correlation with those larger egos, and insecurity, right? So underneath is that insecurity, which we all have levels of insecurity, and then we compensate, right? Like the ego compensates for this whatever this true form, these true things that we feel. And to be fair to people who feel insecure, um, people feel insecure for lots of real good reasons based on
Yeah.
experiences that they had, things that happened to them, or things that should have happened to them and they never got. And there develops this well of this, like the bucket without the bottom. And so there is a compensatory aspect that people have when they're putting themselves out there in certain ways to, and again, it's survival, because it's to feel okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's to feel secure, it's to feel valued.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
their way of feeling valued and showing the world that they are something. um, and we want people to feel secure, right? We want people to feel secure in this
Mm-hmm.
world. So I feel like, so people can be grounded in who they are, they can feel okay with who they are, accept who they are. And actually, that is to your point about freedom. It's like internal freedom comes with self-acceptance. And it seems so
Absolutely.
hard for us humans to fully accept ourselves with all of the stuff, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that we all bring to this experience.
Yeah, and I mean, I think so many of us hold ourselves to standards that we would never hold other people to. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
expect the people in my life to, to be as together as I want to feel,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I would say that ultimately, Dr. Dan, it's like if we can begin to understand what's motivating us, like what's driving that behavior, it can be very clarifying. Because if what's driving your behavior or your choices is that instinct to secure yourself, right? Like socially, in your family and your relationship, then you may or may not be doing something from a place of authenticity
Mm-hmm.
versus you having an innate desire to create something that truly represents your unique offering to the planet
Mm-hmm.
or is an opportunity to express yourself. And so, I've done a lot of questioning over the course of my life in terms of understanding my motivations for what I'm doing. What is driving me to write? What is driving me to achieve? What's driving me to lay down? It's like, am I doing this because I feel like if I do this, other people will accept me more fully, or I will secure that sense of, attention or love that I'm seeking? Or is it because innately there's something in me that has a need to express itself?
Mm-hmm.
And this is, a projection of that. And I don't know that we ever fully arrive at those answers. I think, as you suggested, so much of this is embedded in our psyche from such a young age. And many of us, weren't parented in a way that gave us a foundation of safety where we can just rest in our existence and know that we're
Mm-hmm.
enough and we're okay simply because we are, simply
Yes.
because we exist. Like, our place on this planet doesn't have to be earned. Our value is uncompromised and unchanging, regardless of what we do or don't do. I mean, that's the reality. That's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to fully anchor ourselves in the fact that we're 100% valuable at birth and have nothing to gain or lose by whatever we do, it's interesting then to know what we do and what we create and what we choose not to do and create.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we feel fully satisfied in our existence, knowing that we're enough exactly as we are, who we are in this moment, we have nothing to prove to anyone, even to ourselves. What
Oh,
are the choices that we make
wow.
from there, right?
Wow.
What unfolds?
What a wonderful world that would be. And you're right, right? Like if we didn't have to prove ourselves to ourselves or to other people, what choices would we make with what we're here to do? And you just talked about creating what we're here to create. So I do want to move this to your company, which you created,
Mm-hmm.
and how how did that 2018, it's right now it's 2025, multi-million dollar company. How did that get created and become what it has become?
I'm very lucky to be surrounded by people who are much more brilliant at business than I am. I'm an idea generator, so I have seeds of ideas all the time. And then I bring them to people who are just way smarter than I am. And as a team, we build and we cultivate, something beautiful and magical. I've done it with music. I've done it now with the writing, and certainly with the company. I mean, the company is maybe like the most quantifiable example of that because there are metrics involved and
Hmm.
numbers, right? But I think, I'm as proud or more proud of other things I've created that aren't as sort of financially, successful. I would say that with anyone wanting to build anything from like an entrepreneurial perspective, like, be prepared to have many ideas. There have been many incarnations prior to me founding an Alaya Naturals of things in the health sort of field that did not have the same level of success. Um, Again, with the confidence piece, being willing to take risks is so important because when you start a company, a lot's going to go wrong. A lot every day is going to go wrong. And you really have to have the resilience to kind of just keep picking up the pieces over and over and over again. So we built something in our garage, basically. I created labels on my computer. I was customer service for the first year and a half under an alias name. You start small and surround yourself with people who are trusted, and just understand that things are going to go wrong. That's inevitable. And that you have the resources internally and in terms of your support team to just keep working through things and keep working through things. But my best advice to anyone wanting to start a company or anything that involves some level of financial investment, to start small
Hmm.
and test the waters, see what works and what doesn't, continuously be in contact with the people you're serving and adjust accordingly, right? Like, at the end of the day, everything that I've done to serve people, to be of service. And in order to be of service, I have to first create something that's of service to myself. So all the
Mm.
products I create are basically the medicine cabinet that I rely on heavily to stay physically strong and healthy. Um, but then I'm talking to people and saying, like, what's working about this? What's not? Like, how else can I serve you? What about this bottle cap is annoying? Are you having trouble, opening this? Do you like this label? Is this label too bright? Is it too dull? Like, just to be in communication with the people you're trying to serve,
Mm.
so that you can continue to refine and refine your product and your process.
What have you learned about effective leadership?
You have to be flexible. You have to be adaptable. So much comes up that's outside of your control. For instance, a pandemic happened
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
that affected our shipping. Suddenly, we couldn't ship internationally, right? Like, suddenly, it was just there's so many things that are outside of our control. So you have to be adaptive. You have
Hmm.
to whatever circumstances are happening around you and internally with your team. I think people want to work with and be around someone who gives them a lot of compassion and leeway and grace. And, I think that the team I work with feels really valued.
Hmm.
Like, they don't feel disposable, because they're not, in my
Hmm.
eyes. Like, they're
Hmm.
really essential, and they're made to feel essential because they are. And so I think whatever you're doing, whether or not you're, running the company, or you're whatever part of the company you find yourself in, I think to make sure that the people around you feel valued is it's kind of everything, right? And
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
just so happens that people are more incentivized to work hard if they
Right.
feel like they're not disposable, and like they're being treated with respect and care. And again, just as we check in with our
Yes.
customers on a regular basis, you check in with your team and say, like, what's working and what's not. Or, we seem to have a little communication snafu, like, let's clean this up, let's clear the air. It's a mutual respect that has to be cultivated over time.
Yeah. Isn't it fascinating? So I totally agree with you. And I find it fascinating that in business, there's, so much and too much for a variety of reasons goes down just to the bottom line, the dollar. And understandable
Yeah.
business, you have to look at that. And yet, valuing your team, valuing your colleagues, valuing your employees, your support team, it doesn't cost a dime. And you just talked about it in business speak, it actually increases motivation and productivity, which of course affects the bottom
Yeah.
line. But if you're focused on the human interaction and understand how important the human interaction is, and that someone feeling important and needed versus replaceable, it's tremendous the impact it has on the health of the individual and the health of the organization.
Yes. And I think, to your original question of, what creates effective leadership, understanding that people have different work styles, just as children have different, well, we all have different learning styles. It seems to be more obvious in the classroom, right? Because it's being witnessed
Hmm.
day in, day out by teachers who are trying to manage, a large number of kids. But understanding that everyone has a very different way of approaching their work, like for me, I can't sit at a computer all day. I have to be in movement pretty much all the time. So, I mean, I do write for long periods of time, but you'll notice that I take breaks way more frequently than someone in an office setting might because they don't feel like they have the freedom to get up and stretch, right? Like, I find that if I go take a walk or putter, even, like, I think the art of puttering is so misunderstood and undervalued. Like, when I get up and open a drawer and start like throwing away, plastic forks or recycling plastic forks that no longer serve a purpose, the idea comes, the
Hmm.
answer arrives. Like
Right.
the problem I've been trying to solve and racking my brain over and over analyzing and polling people and overthinking, suddenly it presents itself without any effort at all.
Hmm.
And so you might have a work colleague who actually like is most productive while hiking
Hmm.
or who wants a really leisurely like European style lunch, and doesn't want a 30-minute break, right? Like,
Hmm.
I think for me the bottom line is if the work gets done, I don't really care how you get it done.
Hmm.
And I've created situations for myself in my own life where I haven't had to report to someone who doesn't understand my work style because I just won't be productive. Like if I'm ever in a situation where I'm mandated to not get up and move physically, you just won't experience the best of me. Like my
Right.
creativity won't
Right.
flourish
Right.
under those circumstances. And I think it's very unfortunate that the way so many jobs are structured and classrooms are structured is limiting in terms of how people really feel most alive and where the best ideas are generated and how we come up with solutions for problems. And
Hmm.
and I think Apple did a study, I want to say, please don't quote me on this, but I think Apple did a study that showed that even like a 3-minute break, like actually maximizes or increases, mental cognition and productivity and enhances whatever work a person then sits down to.
Hmm.
Um, so it could be like literally getting up and stretching for 3 or 4 minutes. But, everyone I work with understands that at the end of the day, like if you want to go to Italy for 2 weeks and work from there, great. But the job does need to get done, in
Right.
whatever way,
Right.
you choose to do it. I know a
Yeah.
lot of, companies don't have that level of flexibility, but I think that the paradigm of sort of understanding how you work best and
Yes.
knowing that each individual is uniquely wired and has different sensitivities, different needs, different learning styles, different, ways of being in the world and operating in the world, it just creates more success all around.
It does, and that was a topic on our recent podcast with Jonathan Mooney called "Divergent Nation," and it's all about, we're talking more about neurodiversity, but you don't have to be labeled neurodiverse to have strengths and to have weaknesses and to have a preferred way of being. And it is true, the companies that are embracing individuality and looking to harness that person's unique strength on a particular topic or just the way they go about doing things, those are the companies that are successful, right? Like, so I love
Mhm.
that point. It's just being open and being creative and getting to know the people that you're working with and eliciting the best from them by actually working with them for them to tell us how they do best in these situations and what would be optimal for them to produce the results that they want and what you want.
Right. I mean, what if someone needs like an hour in nature and then they're on fire for 3 hours? If they have the freedom to do that, why not? Like, I think that what that requires, though, on some level, is that we also do that with ourselves.
Oh, right.
And most of us we don't treat other people that way because we haven't given ourselves the permission to be in the world and operate in the world in a way that's sustainable for us.
Hmm.
Like, I know that for me, if I have too many structured days in a row, I start to get really cranky. I feel like less, I don't know, I don't laugh as easily. I feel crowded. I feel inconvenienced. It's like I need spaciousness in my schedule and chunks of time that feel unencumbered and unstructured to then rejuvenate and then hit it hard. you
Yeah.
know, and it's like waves for me. It's waves. It's like I store up energy and then I explode and then I store up it. But I know that about myself because I've given myself the opportunity to really be conscious of my rhythm, you
Mm.
know, and I know that if I have 10 meetings every day for 6 days in a row, I will start to feel worn out and then like no one gets my best.
Hmm. Yeah. Rhythm also in your book. Um,
Yes.
you're, I just want to read as we are starting to wind down here, something you wrote at the beginning of your book. And there are people like me whose history of trauma, acute perceptivity, and desire to feel worthy of love create the perfect storm of longing. The commonality among all of us who suffer is that every one of us wants to be accepted. We want to feel safe and rooted in an identity and a community that are unshakable. And we want to believe, need to believe, that we are not alone. And you have done that in your book, to share of yourself in the way that you share of yourself and all of your lessons learned through, um, lots of different modalities, lots of effort, of trial, um, of of resilience, right? Of a couple steps forward, steps back, and sharing what helped you, just like with your company, the nutrition. What helped you be healthy, continue to grow? And so I want to just thank you for putting this into the world.
Oh,
And
thank you.
it also makes me think of a quote that your mentor said to you, which is this idea. You're like, so when's my plane going to land? Like when I just get here. And I love that. And this is so helpful for me. And your mentor basically said, as long as you're
Yeah.
growing, the plane never lands. And
Yeah.
to see that
Yeah.
as expansion and as something that's desirable, as opposed to, I just need to descend. I just need to get to the end.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist, does it?
It doesn't. I mean, I think that this is where the positive surrender
Yes.
comes in,
Yes.
right? Like we are on this ride forever. By the way, you made me blush. You can see I'm actually beet red because I've never heard anyone read anything I've written out loud. So
Hmm.
I'm actually like a piece of like a vegetable right now. But thank you for reading that. That was beautiful. Um, yeah, the plane doesn't really land, I don't think, until we're dead, frankly. Um, but we don't have to feel anxious all the time. We don't have to feel stressed all the time. We don't have to feel alone. You know, all of these things that kind of keep us from living our best life aren't a requirement to
Hmm.
grow and
Hmm.
evolve.
Hmm.
So while we may be on the plane our whole lives with that itchy feeling of, God, I just want to touch down and rest and be at my destination and not have another thing come up, we can continue to be challenged in a way that isn't suffocating, that doesn't crush us, and that in the end, in the end, in quotes, like
Yeah.
when we're through it on the other side, make us feel aware of how powerful and empowered we are. And hopefully, those lessons and that strength empowers the people around us to live their most dynamic, whole lives as well. But I do love the idea of sharing what's happening in real time because it is not always clean and tidy. And it's
No.
important for people to know that even with all of the tools I've collected over time and the many, many therapies I've experimented with and share in my book, it's still such a work in progress,
Hmm.
you know, and that's just being human. We're all here on the ride together.
We are all here together on this little star flying through space.
Yeah.
Yes. Shauna, thank you. Thanks for your time and for putting
Thank
out in
you.
the world what you're putting out in the world. Everybody, the new book, You Are the Boss of You. Cultivate the mindset and practices to live life on your terms. Tell everyone where they can find the book, about your company, and your social media handle, which might be getting
Oh, goodness.
a little more active these days. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Dan. I just realized a couple months ago that people could actually send personal messages. That's how much of a Luddite I am. The book can be found on Amazon or most likely at your local Barnes and Noble. And my personal website is helloshauna.com, HELLOSHAUNA.com. And that's where you can actually download the workbook, the free workbook that I've created to accompany You Are the Boss of You. And that's full of so many actionable, practical exercises to sort of put theory into practice. My Instagram handle is at Shauna Brittenham Reiter. And my company, Alaya Naturals, can be found at alayaнаturals.com. And the Instagram for Alaya Naturals is at alaya.naturals. That's a lot of information.
That's a lot of information. All right, everyone, look for those. Her Instagram is going to be. It's going to be. Yeah, look for the show notes for all that stuff, and good luck stepping into the social media world as you feel comfortable with your positive surrender.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dan, for having me today. It was a pleasure.
Such a pleasure. I found Shauna to be an authentic and heartfelt person who's gone from surviving to thriving while still doing the work to grow and expand. Here are 5 key takeaways from today's episode that I hope will stay with you. Number 1, healing is non-linear and ongoing. Shauna reminds us that healing isn't a single event. It's a layered, evolving process that requires compassion, curiosity, and presence. 2, authenticity over perfection. Letting go of perfectionism is liberating. When we show up as we are, contradictions, messiness and all, we give others permission to do the same. 3, boundaries are the gateway to freedom. Learning to set boundaries, both internally and externally, allows us to step into bigger, more aligned versions of our lives without fear or resentment. 4, you matter first. Prioritizing your needs is not selfish, it's essential. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and your well-being sets the tone for every relationship and endeavor. 5, you are the boss of you. At the heart of it all, your worth is inherent. You don't need to earn it or prove it. You are enough as you are. You have the power to create, define, and live your life on your own terms. If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to check out Shauna's book, You Are the Boss of You, and follow her journey on social media at alayanaturals.com. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for your 5-star reviews, and thank you for subscribing to our show. And as always, we have this moment, this day, and this life. Let's make it a great one.